Hi everyone, I am Deborah.
My name is Autumn.
I'm Ellie.
And I'm Sarah, and we chose to do our movie on Hillbilly Elegy. And one quote I wanted to start by sharing was, "Where we come from is who we are, but we choose every day who we become," by J.D. Vance.
So, this family memoir film follows J.D. Vance and his family through their life in Middleton, Ohio in the 1980s and early 2000s. The film assumes a flashback, present-day storytelling in which the audience gets to see adolescent J.D. and adult J.D. navigate different life stages. Hillbilly Elegy touches on topics of abuse, addiction, and navigating intergenerational family care and trauma.
To give you guys a visual, we have JD Vance and Lindsay in both their adolescent and adulthood stages, and then Mama and Bev on the right.
So now start with intersectionality. We can understand how JD's identity is shaped by overlapping systems of oppression and power. For example, he grows up in poverty in a home where basic needs are always met. In one scene, for example, Mama asks for Meals on Wheels deliveryman for extra food for him, saying that she didn't even have enough money to buy her medications for that month. This brief moment highlights their food insecurity and the difficulty it trades off by families living in poverty. When it comes to ethnicity, his Appalachian identity also shapes his experience. At a formal dinner to secure a prestigious internship, he struggles with proper dinner etiquette. He doesn't even know which utensils to use and feels completely out of place. When he shares where he's from, someone makes a comment linking it to rednecks. This shows how class and ethnicity can create social barriers. However, as a white man, he doesn't face racial discrimination. This likely eases his path into elite institutions such as Yale in ways that might not be possible for a person of color from the same background. Regarding to gender, he's expected to be emotionally strong and self-reliant, especially when his mother overdoses. Despite being young, the burden of to fix things fall on him all the time. That leads us to make an analysis using the ecological system theory. In the microsystem level, we see his close relationship. His mother, Bev, lives with a dual diagnosis, addiction and mental illness, and often lashes out on him. His grandmother, Mama, and her sister serves as stabilizing forces. Mama, in particular, is tough but loving, and is deeply committed to his well-being. When we look at the mesosystem, we observe the tensions between home and school. JD struggles in middle school due to the chaotic home life. His math teacher gives him a D and says that he thinks that he can do better than that without even asking what is really going on. But with his Mama's support, he finds stability, eventually attending Ohio University and later Yale Law School. Research shows that even one stable adult can build resilience, and I believe Mama and his sister was that for him. In the ecosystem, the larger community issues have a ripple effect on his life. He mentions early in the film that he doesn't understand why his family has to keep moving, highlighting the economic stability. Later, after his mother heroin overdoses, he struggled to find health care, especially for healthcare. And this is a systemic problem that we see, especially for people from low socioeconomic status. In the macro system, we confront with cultural values and stigma. Society often blames families like GJs for their struggles without addressing structural roots. An example of this is when he hesitates to share about his family history with his girlfriend, Yusha, highlighting how deeply stigmatized poverty, addiction, and mental illness still are.
So, as Deborah mentioned, a turning point for JD's understanding of his role in his family system is when he experiences rationing because of poverty for the first time. So, under the care of Mama, he understands that he needs to work harder in order for his family to be safe and happy. According to the theory of reason action, JD's behavior about getting a job, getting good grades, and taking care of the house was influenced by his change in attitude and intention towards these behaviors, which were expected of him. This later translates to having a strong desire for law school and a successful career to provide stability for himself and his family. To build off reason action, there are two psychosocial stages that heavily impact the trajectory of the story. JD being in his adolescence and trying to figure out why Mama is pushing him to be better, while Bev, his mother, who is in middle age care stage, is not engaging in healthy influences. Mama is in the old stage of Eric Erickson's psychosocial stages. Um, and she reflects on her parenting in the past and how she wants to spend the last few years of her life. These two characters, Mama and JD, have a strong intergenerational impact on each other as they both benefit from the lessons and chances they give one another. Without Mama's influence, JD indulges in many risk-taking behaviors that negatively impact his identity. And then Mama uses her wisdom to positively influence JD. And then later on in the film, as Mama gets diagnosed with pneumonia, she and JD process death together and the legacy of their family.
So the one that I wanted to cover was terror management theory. So terror management theory explains how people's fear of death influences their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, especially when confronted with older people, because then the idea of death becomes more real. We see this in the movie in several ways. The first is when where Papa passes away. Bev, JD, and Mama find him. The next scene shows them on the way to the funeral, where Bev is seen taking a pill and becoming incoherent at the funeral. The confrontation of her father's death causes her behavior to change and causes her to start using drugs again. The second time is when Mama collapses and JD finds her. He confronts her at the hospital, asking if she's gonna die. He gets very angry with her and starts lashing out before he goes home with his stepbrother and friends and goes to one of the friends' old workplaces and completely destroys the place. The fear he felt in the face of his grandmother's inevitable passing contributed to him lashing out violently and acting different than he usually does. The next concept I wanted to cover was social learning theory and intergenerational transmission. JD is constantly being taught through social learning theory and intergenerational transmission that family sticks together and you shouldn't let anyone else into your family business. That family comes before anything. So he showed this in a few ways. The first way he showed this is when Bev needs clean pee to pass a drug test and JD doesn't want to give his, but Mama forces him to. He gets upset saying that Mama keeps allowing her addiction to happen. However, Mama states that family is the most important thing in the world and makes him pee in the cup for her. Another way he showed this is when JD calls the cops on his mother out of fear that she'll kill him when she's beating him. But once his family all gets there, he goes on to deny that anything even happened to the cops, begging them to let his mother go. Once he does this, his mama says, "Everything's going to be all right. You're a good boy, JD," reinforcing to him that protecting his mom was more important than speaking out about the violence he faced. Finally, at the beginning of the movie, JD's family comes to his aid when three teenage boys attack him while he's swimming. When talking about fighting back but not being a match for the boys, he says, "If you can't end the fight, your people will always have your back." He then mirrors this behavior later in the movie when he comes to his mom's aid, threatening to fight her ex-boyfriend after he calls her a whore. So as you can see through social learning theory and intergenerational transmission, he learned the behavior of his family, that family comes before anything, even when it is in the face of violence or addiction.
Okay, I chose to relate to the theory of family systems theory, which I thought was very prevalent in this movie. Family is the only thing that is worth a goddamn. That was a quote by his mama, a very important, persuasive member in his family that had a ripple effect on him, just like all of the people in the family have a ripple effect on how it's going to go for the rest of them as a whole unit. I see it as kind of a holistic perspective. The individual members are all interconnected and a part of the family as a whole. And things like past generational trauma can lead on to how they are going to be affected as a whole throughout generations. Cultural impacts like being from the Appalachia area absolutely play a part of that too. The region and that's directly impacted by poverty and systematic hardships that kind of perpetuate how the family is going to be affected as a whole. The triangles exist within these family systems. Two examples from the movie is when right off the bat, JD gets a call from his sister at a very important meeting at Yale and gets told about his mother's struggle with addiction, and she actually OD'd, so he had to step in because those two members needed an outside force. It also happened when he was struggling in school as a child, and his grandma had to step in because him and his mother are having so many conflicts. We can go to the next slide. mother addiction affects not only his other family members, like his sister and his grandma, but directly affects him with his common emotionally and physically being at risk by her. And then, the grandma has to step in. So it's just this whole kind of ecosystem of all these working parts that affect how each of their lives are going to go emotionally. Positive emotional connections, like his grandma, especially her taking him in. And once he finally realized how much she was willing to sacrifice from him, he really attributes that to his availability to get this resistance and break the cycle even through the adversity that he experienced. Another example about why the mother was even impacting him that way is because of later on in the movie when he's about to kind of give up on her. The sister reminds him that she had her own trauma herself. So it's just kind of this working system where they all affect each other, and it's hard to break some unhealthy cycles in that case.